So guys, we have to talk about this because what President-elect Donald Trump just did is amazing. He's our man with the plan in the White House, and part of that plan is to finally get our homeless off the streets and help them recover. Watch.
Our once great cities have become unlivable, unsanitary nightmares, surrendered to the homeless, the drug addicted, and the violent and dangerously deranged. We're making many suffer for the whims of a deeply unwell few, and they are unwell indeed. The homeless have no right to turn every park and sidewalk into a place for them to squat and do drugs. Americans should not have to step over piles of needles and waste as they walk down a street in a beautiful city, or at least once beautiful city, because they've changed so much over the last 10 years. Our first consideration should be the rights and safety of the hardworking, law-abiding citizens who make our society function. When I'm back in the White House, we will use every tool, lever, and authority to get the homeless off our streets. We want to take care of them, but they have to be off our streets. There is nothing compassionate about letting these individuals live in filth and squalor rather than getting them the help that they need. We need professionals to help them. For a small fraction of what we spend upon Ukraine, we could take care of every homeless veteran in America. Our veterans are being treated horribly. Likewise, with all of the money we will save by ending mass unskilled migration, we will have a huge dividend to address this crisis in our own country. Under my strategy, working with states, we will ban urban camping wherever possible. Violators of these bans will be arrested, but they will be given the option to accept treatment and services if they're willing to be rehabilitated. Many of them don't want that, but we'll give them the option. We will then open up large parcels of inexpensive land, bring in doctors, psychiatrists, social workers, and drug rehab specialists, and create 10 cities where the homeless can be relocated and their problems identified. But we'll open up our cities again, make them livable and make them beautiful. For those who are just temporarily down on their luck, we will work to help them quickly reintegrate into a normal life. For those who have addictions, substance abuse, and common mental health problems, we will get them into treatment. And for those who are severely mentally ill and deeply disturbed, we will bring them back to mental institutions where they belong, with the goal of reintegrating them back into society once they are well enough to manage. It's a tough task, a very tough task. What's taken place on the streets, what's taken place with their taking so much drugs. But the fact is, we're going to try. This strategy will be far better and also far less expensive than spending vast sums of taxpayer money to house the homeless in luxury hotels without addressing their underlying issues, and they have so many of these underlying issues and needs. This is how I will end the scourge of homelessness and make our cities clean and safe and beautiful once again. We will do it. We will bring back America. Thank you.
I mean, I definitely agree with the president-elect. We definitely should not have any homeless elderly on the streets, especially when they're our very own veterans, right? You know who else agrees with our soon-to-be 47th president of the U.S.? The very liberal governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Now, as he said just this September, there is no compassion in allowing people to suffer the indignity of living in an encampment for years and years. And this was just before he signed a package of a housing bill. You see, Trump can work with Democrats regardless of what many of his liberal haters have to say. The one group that Trump is not going to work with, though, is Mexican cartels. As former ICE Director Tom Homan said, Trump will designate these criminal groups as a terrorist organization. Watch.
Message to the criminal cartels in Mexico. You smuggled enough fentanyl across this country to kill 148,000 young Americans. You have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. And that's when President Trump gets back in office. He's going to designate you a terrorist organization, and he's going to wipe you off the face of the earth. You're done. You're done.
And guess what, guys? Even these cartels know that our president-elect means business. In fact, they're already bracing for the border crackdown that's sure to come under President Trump. Here, watch this.
Three busy border sectors, the Tucson, El Paso, and Del Rio sectors, to see what is happening as these border states await the new Trump presidency. Border correspondent Allie Bradley joins us live. Allie, what are you hearing in these border towns now that the election's over?
Yeah, hey, Elizabeth, we're already seeing things actually ramping up here. So where we are, we're now in the El Paso sector. We're in Sunland Park. This is technically New Mexico. We are literally standing on the border with Mexico. So this is Mexico right here. This is where the wall ends. You can see the boundary here. The wall just ends. These people are running across. We just saw a guy literally clear these railroad tracks and disappear off into that community over there, which is Sunland Park. Now, when we come back around here, Chris, let's show them up here what this ridge looks like. So, you guys, we've been watching smuggling vehicles and smugglers up on this ridge. This is where we see them operate every day that we're down here. And these are kind of like makeshift stash houses. They're going to bring illegal immigrants in there, leave them in there for a couple hours until they have clearance, basically to a green light to go. And then they'll send them down and they run into that community. So speaking of stash houses, look what we experienced yesterday in the Tucson sector. This is another busy sector here as we visit 3 sectors in 3 days. We were there as law enforcement were searching a home. We're actually carrying out a warrant, a search warrant. You can see their guns drawn here. You can see in this situation in Cochise County where human smuggling is ramping up, these people were in a stash house. So there was 9 individuals from Mexico in a detached garage in the back. Now, this detached garage couldn't have been bigger than a 1-car garage. 9 people were in there, 3 women, 2 juveniles. There was clothes scattered all over the place, food discarded. The smell was just putrid. It was pretty intolerable, and these weren't conditions that you would wish on your worst enemy. So what is happening there? We were only about 100 yards from the border wall. Take a listen to what the sheriff had to say about what the cartel is doing and what they're going to be doing.
They're going to push hard right now, the cartels. They know they have to. They have a president coming in that's made it very clear, and based on his track record, he will secure this border. He'll declare it an emergency based on what we've had for the last 4 years, and which means it will seal that border. So the cartels aren't stupid. It's a business. They're going to be pushing their dope through here, their illicit drugs, you name it, to include trafficking people, smuggling people.
I mean, finally, right, guys? A president that puts Americans first again. Definitely a breath of fresh air after draining the swamp, if you know what I mean. Now, speaking of the swamp, did you guys hear about this one? Apparently, the Treasury Department has found hundreds of records of transactions linked to Democratic fundraising platform ActBlue that have been flagged by banks as potentially suspicious. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, he sent out a memo flagging this potentially fraudulent and illicit financial activity involving the political donations portal. And they're talking about hundreds of potentially responsive records, one of the largest record reviews that they've conducted this Congress. So we're talking possible evidence of money laundering, fraudulent or counterfeit use of credit cards or debit cards, wire transfer fraud, identity theft, or other financial crimes flagged since January 1st, 2023. And this isn't the first time that the Democratic platform has gotten scrutiny from our lawmakers either. In fact, GOP-led congressional committees and Republican state attorneys general in Missouri, Texas, and Wyoming have probed ActBlue this year over similar allegations of fraudulent fundraising. And from what we're seeing, guys, so-called dummy accounts have potentially made thousands of individual donations to Democratic causes. In fact, the former chief of staff of Herman Cain and Wisconsin Republican strategist himself, Mark Block, alleged in an explosive racketeering lawsuit earlier this month with his identity that one of many had been stolen, and used this year to make at least 385 donations worth $884.38 to the Harris Victory Fund and other left-wing committees. So why so many people involved? Because individual contributions of less than $200 do not have to be reported to the Federal Election Commission. That's why. And they say that ActBlue may have been in on it as the platform didn't require card verification values for online transactions with debit cards, credit cards, or even prepaid gift cards. And so this means that they were open to all sorts of fraud and even illicit foreign contributions. House Administration Committee Chairman Brian Steele even said that their investigation found that China, Russia, Iran, and Venezuela in particular may be exploiting existing U.S. donors by making straw donations without the individual individuals or ActBlue's knowledge. Some of what they found include, in some cases, hundreds of donations to ActBlue have been recorded amounting to just $2.50 from the same individual. And take note, guys, ActBlue helped raise more than $2.2 billion for Democratic candidates and causes during the 2021-2022 election cycle. More recently, the platform has also helped Vice President Kamala Harris with her campaign, receiving as much as $46.7 million from donors using ActBlue just hours after she succeeded President Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee. And what did Harris spend this money on? Well, it turns out she may have used a sizable chunk on all of those celebrity endorsers that she had backing her. For one, Vice President Kamala Harris paid Oprah Winfrey Harpo Productions allegedly $1 million. Now, apparently, this was after that star-studded town hall that Oprah Winfrey hosted with the vice president in September. And don't forget, guys, Oprah Winfrey also appeared at Harris's final rally in Philadelphia on the eve of the election day and even gave her a very rare endorsement. And you know what Oprah Winfrey said at the rally? That they're voting for values and integrity. Well, it looks like now we know what those values and that integrity really means, right? And as it turns out, it wasn't just Oprah Harris was spending money on. From what we were able to dig up, apparently the Harris campaign spent 6 figures on building a set for Harris's appearance on the popular Call Her Daddy podcast with host Alex Cooper. But when you look at the episode, it's just basically a hotel room in Washington, D.C. And let's not forget that the campaign even had 7 swing state concerts on the day before the election, including performance by John Bon Jovi in Detroit, Christina Aguilera in Las Vegas, Katy Perry in Pittsburgh, Lady Gaga in Philadelphia, and a 2 Chainz performance at a rally 3 days before the election in Atlanta. But look where all that frivolous spending got the candidate, right? It basically got her nowhere fast. As Republican political strategist Brad Todd put it, money can't buy you love or a good candidate. And well, Trump just has all of that and so much more, right? Speaking of, if you guys want more updates like this one sent straight to your screens, don't hesitate, guys. Definitely subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. It's totally free to do so, and you'll definitely be helping out the channel big time in our huge goal of reaching 700,000 subscribers on the channel before President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration day in January. Then we will really be cooking, guys. So do not go anywhere, all right? So a key issue for our president-elect on day one, homelessness in America. In particular, the nearly 186,000 homeless residents in California that the Golden States wants to move indoors, and Trump is all in for it. In fact, our soon-to-be president again pledged on the campaign trail to tackle the encampments that have made cities unlivable by working with states to ban urban camping and arrest those who don't comply, something many cities in California started doing before Election Day, as even their very Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom encouraged them to clear camps. As Trump said in the clip earlier, there's nothing compassionate about letting these individuals live in filth and squalor rather than getting them the help that they actually need. And Newsom seems to be in lockstep with him on this one, as the governor ordered state agencies to ramp up encampment suites and even threatened to withhold state funding from cities that fail to do the same. Another campaign promise Trump is already following up, fixing things between Russia and Ukraine. The president-elect held his first post-election call with Russian leader Vladimir Putin last week, and he warned him against ramping up in Ukraine. According to sources from Washington Post of all places, the incoming president took note of U.S. military power in Europe while trying to discourage the Kremlin dictator from intensifying Russia's war in the Ukraine. The day before, Trump spoke with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on the phone as well, although they didn't let us in on the details very much other than Trump assuring Zelensky that he had his support and that Trump's favorite billionaire Elon Musk was also on that phone call. So Trump promised an end to this Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours of his presidency, and from what the 2 European leaders have said, it looks like they're listening. So first, Putin said that Trump behaved in a very correct way, courageously like a real man. He also said that the desire to restore relations with Russia to bring about the end of the Ukrainian crisis deserves attention at least. Zelensky also praised Trump after his win, saying that they look forward to an era of a strong United States of America under President Donald Trump's decisive leadership and continued strong bipartisan support for Ukraine and the United States. So that makes 2 campaign promises that Trump's already delivering on. But of course, let's not forget the last and definitely not the least, the border crisis and the effects of cartels on American families. Trump's recent announcement that his administration will seize the assets of criminal gangs and drug cartels and give the proceeds to families affected by migrant crime. So basically, they're talking about the money seized from these operations would create a compensation fund for victims of crimes committed by those in the U.S. illegally. The former New York DEA chief, Ray Donovan, said that the Trump idea would add a powerful layer of support by redirecting money and assets seized from criminal organizations involved in drug trafficking, gang violence, and other harmful activities. He said that this approach would not only disrupt criminal enterprises, but it would also provide direct aid to those impacted by such violence. Derek Maltz, the former chief of DEA Special Operations Division, called it a great way to pay back victims that have been hurt by these savages that have come illegally into the country and operate with impunity. More importantly, for Maltz, it would be a great way to unite American citizens. I mean, Trump knows business, so it's not exactly a surprise that he can come up with these ideas and also execute on them super fast.
The takeaway is that the system works. We live in a democracy. People spoke. This is what people wanted. I vehemently disagree with the decision that Americans made, but I feel very, very hopeful that we have a democratic system in this country. We should value it. We should love it. We should protest if the situation arises that we need to protest, which I'm sure it will.
I'm profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was "America makes a perilous choice." I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have.
You feel what you feel. Everyone has different emotions. Some people got what they wanted. A lot of people didn't. And you feel anything that comes up, and then you turn around and you say, let's look at the tapes. Let's see what we did. Let's see how we continue to fight for the people that we care about. And you take one step in front of the other. And so here we are today, and I still feel that optimistic because I feel arm in arm with so many people who agree with me, and I'm not going to stop marching.
Tens of millions of Americans, our friends, our neighbors, our family members, voted for Donald Trump. We disagree with him. I know we all do at this table, but they are good, decent people who are patriots and love this country.
Can always say, oh, she should have done this, she should have done this, She did what she did. She was everywhere. She talked to everybody, and people didn't come out. I don't know why, and it doesn't even matter. He's now the president. I'm still not going to say his name.
It is a moment to listen to the voters. And this, I have to say, I've always thought he could win. I thought in the final stretch she might eke it out. I didn't expect it to be this resounding, and I think there are some lessons from it. I think we forget about rural America. I think the working class feels left behind. They feel like the powerful, the elite only care about them and their power. And he spoke to them. We may not have liked his words, but they turned out for him.
Whoopi Goldberg refuses to say his name, so let's go ahead and do it for him. It's President-elect Donald J. Trump, and you better get used to it, ladies. They talked about their supposed intelligent, qualified woman candidate losing to our guy who was simulating sex with a microphone. Well, guess what? She did, and all this talk about a referendum on cultural resentment isn't going to change anything. In fact, if you ask me, guys, I would like to personally thank the ladies at The View for helping Donald Trump get reelected. If it weren't for their obvious bias and even outright hatred of Donald Trump, a lot of Americans wouldn't notice just how skewed and warped our mainstream media is against the working class and people like the president-elect. Not to mention how out of touch these liberal news channels have become. It's crazy. I mean, I still remember that one clip that I shared with you guys of MSNBC analyst and former Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill crying after watching Vice President Kamala Harris's concession speech. She said people just don't realize how hard it is to get where Kamala Harris was. Well, I really don't think that people realize how hard it was to get where Donald Trump is, and it was mainly the Democrats that made each step so difficult. What with their lawfare campaign against the man and getting backing from their billionaire donors? I don't care what they say. Trump was the underdog in this election, and the American people voted to send him back to the White House to finish the job that he started. But hey, it wouldn't be liberal media if they didn't can find somebody to blame for their loss, right? On MSNBC, Joy Reid essentially blamed white women for Harris's North Carolina loss. She's unreal. She said that the black voters came through for Kamala Harris, white women voters did not. Her words, not mine, guys. That is what appears happened in that state. Here, watch this.
But in the end, you know, if they didn't make their numbers and essentially exceed the numbers that Joe Biden had in the suburbs, and I think we have to be blunt about why. Black voters came through for Kamala Harris. White women voters did not. That is what it appears happened in that state, is that if you can't flip enough white women, and we've talked about this on this set numerous times, but it's a state where women lost their reproductive rights, where there was a very heavy push to get women to focus on not putting in place, re-electing, putting back into the White House the person who was responsible for taking those rights away and restoring them. But that message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris, a fellow woman. This will be the second opportunity that white women in this country have to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy.
Well, guys, the great wealth transfer is in full effect. And, you know, whether it's Donald Trump that ends up winning the election or if it's Kamala Harris, oh, God, we're in a world of a pickle, as my grandfather would say. Our freedoms are being stolen, guys. Credit card companies are out to get us. And if you don't understand the game, well, you end up getting played by the game. Now, if you're anything like me, guys, you know, you were probably out of shape, maybe in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling like the system is just completely taking advantage of you. I remember for a long time, I could rarely ever get any time to spend with my wife. And it's kind of funny because where I used to work with a lot of married men. And a lot of those married men would always complain about their spouses as if they really just didn't even like their spouses, which is sounding like a pretty horrible situation. But that was the case for many of them. They didn't like who they were married to. But I was different. Anyway, through trial and error and through a lot of pain, I figured out how to gain freedom and also lose a lot of weight and actually get in shape. And guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, that was a game changer. To no longer be living paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how to get the credit cards to pay me, the power of a strong credit score. I pay thousands of dollars less per year for the same house as my neighbor just because my credit is better than his is. And this is not to brag. I mean, but this is the truth. The banks are literally taking advantage of the poor. It's like the people who can least afford it, they're charging the poor what is like unofficially called a poor tax or a tax on the poor. I mean, I'm now at a point where, you know, like, number one, I don't pay for credit cards. In fact, credit card companies pay me to use their cards. And I figured out how to build a lifestyle that is just ultimately very, very healthy. I lost a tremendous amount of weight and I put on a lot of muscle. But when I was struggling, I wish I knew people who knew these things. So anyway, I decided to create a community of like-minded people who are also interested, just like me, in living better. So if you guys want to join my community, it's called the Liberty Pursuit Network. It is brand new. Come on over. I'd love to have you guys and join like-minded people. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now. So like I said, guys, a breath of fresh air coming in just as they're about to drain the swamp. You know what I mean? Drop a quick yes in the comments down below if you guys agree with what we're saying here. And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to tell us your thoughts on this one, guys. Do you think Trump is ready to come out with all guns blazing on day one of his presidency? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. And when you're done with that one, you cannot go wrong with checking out our other videos on the channel. I highly recommend you guys check out our other one where we talk about the massive migrant movement that's happening in New York City right now, guys, as these illegal immigrants are now saying that they're not leaving the United States. You have to check that video out right after this one. You should see something popping up here in just a second. But as always, thanks so much for watching. Thank you for lighting up the like button and subscribing. See you guys next time.